Hi, welcome to another video. This time I will be talking about Chrome's debugger tool and how I use it to debug my JavaScript application on the browser. So to start, let's just see how you get to the Chrome debugger. You first open your Chrome developer tools by Shift Command F, Shift Command C, or whatever shortcut you have on your system. So once you're there, you can see the source tab. So that's the Chrome's debugger tool, where you'll see these three bars, three sections. On the left, you see the file browser, so Code Explorer. You can add workspace for like local development scene where you can actually debug on your local file system. Otherwise, it's even just fine to be working on this tab where it's the build tools that actually browser is using. So I might do a video to go into details about working with these workspace later on, but for now this is enough for our use case because we're not even doing development on our local file system. It's on Code Sandbox. So let's begin. So this left sidebar is to explore your code, find your source code. For example, here somewhere your code might be to find that, and I rarely use that because since we are working normally with like built artifacts, you generally don't know what JavaScript file to look at. They're kind of hard to predict, so we don't want to go into detail about that, but I just wanted to show you what one of those files will look like if I open it. So that file, sadly that's a font file, but when you open, for example, loader.js, so that's how you will see this the file's source code inside this area. And on the right, you have this sidebar with all the debugging tools you will require. For example, all the breakpoints you have added on the code, the watch expressions you want to use to evaluate, and the threads, the scope variables like their closure, global, and all those kinds of variables you can find within different scopes, and the call stack where you will see the actual stack of any function call. We will see that when we are actually working with one of the use case here. So that's all that you need to know about where things are. So it's even similar to any other debugging tool you might use in your IDE or something. So that's Chrome's debugger tool. And let's see, let's take an example of from this application. Let's see what this application is. This is just an application, kind of role-playing game where you can move into different places, go to different places, and do different stuffs like actions. So, for example, on this tutorial, let's try to find out what's happening when I click these buttons that takes me to different location. To do that, the most simplest way to find the source code, for example, we couldn't find our source code on the left file explorer there. So to find that quickly, all you need to do is right click on that button, find, there you go. These are the event listeners. They are open by default because I I kept that open. Usually this is the standard state where you will see the styles instead of event listeners. So just change to event listeners tab there, and you'll see all the events and event handlers added to those. And this seems like that's the event handler we're looking for, which is coming from index.js. And yeah, exactly, that's the event handler we're looking for. So on move button click, there's something happening. It's trying to set location to different location, right? So that's one way to find that code. Now, if you look at the left side bar, you should probably see where that code is coming from. Still, yeah, that doesn't really matter. But what you got here, you could actually browse it from the left bar, but not very important. So this is one way to get to this source code. Sometimes you're not dealing with, not directly dealing with button event listeners or something. So in those situations, wherever you want to break, you can just add this debugger statement. For example, let's just use the same button click handler here. So you can just add debugger statement there, save it, and then I'll have to refresh this. Seems to be a bug in Code Sandbox. But now with that, what I can try now, if I try to click on this enter path here, it broke at this debugger statement, and that's all you needed to do. Now you're on the source code, and you just need to add more breakpoints or whatever you need. And with that, what happened is you're in this function now. Now let's see what these sidebars have, because before I wanted to show something, but it was kind of empty. So on scope, you'll see all the variables on different scopes. Like local is the actual scope of this file, and closure is the closure. In JavaScript, there are closures like functions body and stuff like that. And there's global, where all the global variables are listed. That's scope. You can have breakpoints here, and it's strangely not working. Are you really? Add breakpoint. I don't know why it didn't add by just clicking here. That's actually how you do it. Yeah, sometimes when you're demoing, especially, things don't work as expected. Add breakpoint. It is adding breakpoint, but for some reason I'm not able to add it from here. But that's how you would add it. But as you added those breakpoints, you see those listed here. So anytime you want to disable those, you can just uncheck them instead of removing the breakpoint as a whole. So you can just keep the breakpoints and just disable them selectively and enable them whenever you need them. And talking about breakpoints, there's this deactivate breakpoints button, which will deactivate all the buttons, which is also sometimes useful. So that's breakpoints, and there's watch, where you can watch for some expressions like those variables and deeply nested variables, whatever, even expressions like calling some functions or things like that. And there is this call stack, which is quite important. So it will tell you where you are in your code. So if I step over and step in, and you'll see like it's taking you to the next level. Like for example, now you're in location watcher, and you came there through these several steps. And that's quite important when you're debugging. Like it's a call stack. So that's that. And there are several other things that are there which will be important, like useful when you're debugging, but these are generally the things that you will most probably use when you're debugging. Let's resume the execution. Now I will take you through the actual click event. So now I clicked there and it paused at this move button click function, and in there I see it's trying to call set location function, which is a setter function from Comfy library, and we can just step over to get to there and enter it by stepping into that function. So that function is actually a setter function, which is now defined here inside use state, which is like the initiation of those states. And what I can do is I can step further into the watcher call itself. So the watcher call is, it's trying to call the watcher that was passed through our index.html index.js code, and we're trying to pass in location watcher. We passed in location watcher function there, and it tried to call that function from there. And now the location watcher, the location is updated, and now the location watcher is trying to do something else. So it's trying to update buttons, and simply it's understandable. But if you want to know exactly what it's trying to do inside, you can again step into it, and you will see different things happening there. Now you will use a step over to go over next statement. So now you'll see it just cleared the buttons HTML. You see there's like empty, there's no buttons left. So now it's going through each of those properties in that journey.location. So if you see journey.location, now we're trying to exit path, and I think we're going to go to you can see living room. So if you're going to living room, you should see these buttons. So it's trying to get these properties and just list them as buttons, and that's what it's doing. So if you're just stepping over, you'll see those buttons being added every iteration of that loop. And yeah, so that's something. Now we understood that once I click that button, what's happening, what's the flow of the code, and now I'm done with it. I can just step out of it. Since all these functions are just one function calls every time, it's pretty simple. But what I did is I just stepped out of those functions. So from that stack you saw down there, I just moved from the third stack to the first one. Now we're on the first function call, and there's nothing else. If there was something else, you can now step into that second function. Probably it's doing something else, calling some other functions. You can step into it and see what's happening inside. So you can browse through whole execution path using this, and throughout you will be able to see what's the state of your variables, like what's set to location, what's the what global variables are there, and all that thing. So that's how you would trace or see the execution path and debug your JavaScript on your browser. I hope that was helpful to you, and if you liked it, please like this video, and if you want to watch more videos like this from me, please consider subscribing, and I will be adding more videos in future. So for this time, that's all. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.